What's up guys, Jarrell here from Neo Vintage Gaming, and today we have a kind of a different video for you guys. Now I'm going to do kind of a half gameplay, half review for a game that I kind of randomly picked up on the Switch eShop. Again, I'm playing on Switch. This is 1980X. Now I'm going to kind of split this into two halves. The first half, I'm going to do a little bit of gameplay for y'all who just want to see that, and then if you stick around towards the end, I'm going to give my full thoughts on this in kind of a full review fashion because I beat it yesterday. But we'll get into that. So to start, I'm just going to show you guys. Now for you guys that don't know, this is kind of like a arcade compilation, if you will, and there's kind of like a story that wraps all these different arcade games together. So as you can see here, you got 5 arcade games that are all kind of emulating and doing this indie dev's spin on classic arcade games. So Beating Heart, if you can see, is kind of like a Final Fight style arcade brawler. Out of the Void is something kind of like an R-Type Gradius type shooter. The Runaway is a Outrun style racing game. Shadowplay gives me kind of like Strider meets Shinobi vibes, kind of like an auto run kind of dodging action game. And then Killscreen is a first-person dungeon crawler, similar to what you'd see in like how would I say, like Phantasy Star and a lot of those older like Shadowkeep and stuff like that. I don't know too much about that genre, so I'll refrain from dropping my thoughts too much about that. So I'm gonna give you guys quick little demos of each game so you guys can get a semblance of what I'm talking about here. So let's start with the first one. There is pretty decent loading times in between here, so it's not the fastest running game, but I wanted to give a quick shout out to the developer, Hi-Tech, I believe, Hi-Tech Productions or something like that. They did a pretty good job on this game. I really enjoy it. For y'all who don't know and are interested, once you see this, it's like $10 on the Switch eShop or something like that, so I highly recommend you go check it out. So here we go, you got the subway. Amazing pixel art. I love the look of this game. So even if you're not a huge fan of like the gameplay, the visual style is phenomenal. So again, this one's kind of like Final Fight for any of you guys who have played that. Amazing synthwave style music too. They did a great job on that. Beating Heart. I love this. Dun, dun. That's so cool. Okay. Alright, here we go. So let's just get the controls real quick. You got move with L, punch is Y, special attack is Y and B at the same time. Okay, cool. And this, I mean, this is basically, for anybody who has played like an arcade, you know, beat 'em up, this is pretty much what you get here. Oh. I'm not like the biggest beat 'em up fan. I definitely like some of like the NES era ones, but once you got more into like Streets of Rage and stuff like that, that's not really my cup of tea, but you can get a little bit of money there. So as you can see, I gotta give them credit. They did a really good job with kind of like faithfully recreating this era's style games. So I'm not gonna try to make this too long of a video. There are on YouTube full walkthroughs of each game, so I don't have to do that. So that's the first one, and I'm kind of just gonna walk you through every single one. Hopefully we'll make a pretty decent time. Again, first half of this video is gonna be for y'all who just kind of want to get a look of each game. And then if you want my full thoughts on that, skip ahead. I'll include in the comment section down below timestamps for when I switch to the discussion portion. So if you want my full review, I'll include that down below and we can get into that. So next one is Out of the Void, one of my personal favorites of them. And this is the R-Type Gradius style space shooter. On rail shooter. I've heard it referred to a couple different ways. Yeah, this one's pretty fun. I've heard some critiques of people feeling like these games lack a certain level of depth or kind of surface representations of this era. games, and I mean, I definitely see their point on them. This is a really short game too. You can get through this game in easily under an hour for sure, top to bottom. So, and there's not too much replayability unless you're going back to the arcade to experience the same levels again. These are not fully realized games. These are 1 or 2 levels, 3 levels at most. So here, as you can see, oh shit. Okay, so I got it. And this is, I mean, basically, you guys get the gist of it. Yeah, in my opinion, this is one of the better ones. But again, it's ultimately going to be defined by your taste in games. If you're really into RPGs, then that last game that I mentioned is probably going to be your favorite. They did a really good job with that one, in my opinion. It gets a bit much because it actually ties into the story, and we can get into that game when we get there, but excellent music in this one. So you gotta be careful with these. Ship blows up, he takes off, and then you continue from there. Gotta dodge asteroids, these are not destructible. Got a little upgrade there. I think it phases through, so there we go. Be able to get that. And this is kind of the final boss of this stage. Kind of dashes forward there. I have to be careful. I can only take one more hit, so. There we go. Beat him. Pretty easy. You get the laser upgrade. That's pretty much the only major upgrade that I've seen in this game. So again, it could be a little bit of a shallow representation. There's not like immense upgrades. If you're into a game like this, a newer game like this, I would highly recommend like a game, Hybroxia, actually. Oh, wrong button. Okay. So that's the second game. We can move on to the third one. This one's pretty cool. I died a couple times. I'm not super into Outrun, those style of like old race. I don't know how you would describe it, kind of arcade racers. Alright. So yeah, the next one is The Runaway. I think this is the most stylistically pleasing game of them all that I really enjoyed. The aesthetic is just super 80s, super kind of like the 80s camp cheese, and I think they did a good job in capturing that, especially the latter part of the game, but I'll let you experience that for yourself. I'll just give you guys a kind of rough idea of what the gameplay looks like. The Runaway. Okay. I always forget whether it was A or B, forget. And so, this is basically it. You want to hit the checkpoints, and it gives you time boosts, and boy, like I eventually got the hang of it, and I was doing pretty well in runs not hitting anything, and it was cutting it pretty close. Like, they are not super gracious with the time. So this one could be a little tougher if you're not into these kind of style games, and you can't really get a grasp on the controls that well. I mean, again, it's gas, you move forward, but it does get a little tricky later on. You gotta utilize the brake a little bit crazier later on. close there. And the thing is, if you hit something, it obviously slows your speed down, and then the NPC controlled vehicles around you will hit you too. And it's like almost a Mario Kart style like compound, like you'll get like hit by like 6 people in a row. So you gotta be careful of that. Oh, exactly like that. That's what I mean. So it kind of adds insult to injury when you crash, so you really want to make sure that you don't slow down in that regard, because then you lose so much time. And again, they are not gracious with the time, and you will not make it. So I wouldn't say that you need to be perfect, but you need to make sure that you keep your crashes to a minimum, especially later on in this section. So yeah, this is this one. As you can see, not very good at that one. Now the 4th out of the 5th, we're making good time here. And yeah, every time you die, for the most part, it sends you back. You hit like checkpoints depending on the game. So for the racing one specifically, the runaway, when you run out of time, it basically throws you all the way back, because you're not hitting, it's not broken down by stages like some of the other ones are. So if you run out of lives during the R-Type style game, you go back to the beginning of that stage, and then you can continue from that point. So that one's actually not that challenging. But in that Outrun style game, if you run out of time, you have to pretty much start it all over again, because it's kind of like one continuous stage. Okay, so we got Shadowplay here. This is the Strider meets Shinobi auto run game. So as you can see here, I love this one. This one probably has to be my favorite. How did I get hit there? I don't know. I'm so terrible. I hate it. And so as you can see, you automatically run, and you kind of just slash here. It gets more and more challenging as it progresses, but I mean, the controls are tight. The pixel art is beautiful. This, in my opinion, has some of the best pixel art of the game. Maybe I'm biased because I'm like such a Shinobi fan, so this is kind of like right up my alley, aesthetic-wise. I'm not going for all those. I don't want to take too much damage because it gets a little challenging later on. So there's like, it's kind of like action challenges. There are platforming challenges to an extent. It's a lot of reaction based stuff. You can slide under those too. Okay. Don't know exactly what the orbs are for. Let me see. Am I missing something with the controls? Yeah, so there's some kind of upgrade that, I don't know if it's upgrade or some kind of attack, but those orbs, maybe it determines when it ends. That I don't know. I mean, I beat the game, they didn't make it very clear. There we go. Took her out. And that's stage 1. Basically. And again, it gets more challenging as it progresses. They introduce those kind of like spears right there, and when those come into the fold, you kind of want to keep your distance because it gives you a little bit more reaction time. See? So I like to hang back here, give myself extra reaction time for when those come, you see? Like that. And the orbs give you kind of a semblance of the direction you want to be in. I took a little damage there, that sucked. As you can see, I'm playing this one a little bit longer because I like this one. There we go, took her out. I'm not going up there. Alright, so those are rising. There you go. In my opinion, this is the best made of the different games included in this collection. I think, again, the controls are tight, the visuals are solid, and I just wish there was a little bit more. And there you can see the main antagonist of this game. So I'll stop right here so you guys can experience a little bit. But yeah, there's a little bit gameplay changes there. This in its own right could be its own game. So yeah, I'd love a game of just that, personally. And then we'll get on to the last one, which is the one that it took me the longest to really get into, just because of the nature that it's an RPG game, like the old school dungeon crawling RPGs. You see this gameplay still kind of pop up every once in a while in games like Etrian Odyssey and stuff like that. Really not my cup of tea. For the other ones, like, yeah, I'm really into Shadow play. Beating Heart is fun in its own regard. Out of the Void's great in my opinion. Runaway's fine if you're into that style. But yeah, Kill Screen is one of the weirder ones, and it does tie into the overarching narrative. I don't want to show you too much of that because what little story there is, I want you guys to be able to experience on your own. I have my own feelings on that. I'll get into the review portion after this. So I'll show you guys a little bit of this. Yeah, this is one of the Stranger games. And so what you want to do is you basically go through a maze, and you fight different enemies, and you choose different attacks based on their weaknesses. So your goal is to slay 3 dragons, and you kind of move through the hallways, and then again you level up after each battle. Eventually you die, and then you kind of respawn, and you go through this over and over again until you max out your level and you're able to take out all the bosses. That's a pretty cool touch right there. So here you see, you move forward, you encounter an enemy. So I'm going to choose slash, and you just time when you do it. Attack me. You can see your HP and XP right there in the corner. I am level 1 obviously because I just began this. Killed it. So let's go right. If you could see there's kind of like your map up there. Those 3 dots are the 3 dragons that you want to kill. I've encountered basically about 3 to 4 different types of enemies here. So obviously they're resistant to slashes. So let's try a different type of attack for this one. Let's try hack. 72. That did. They can do a heal move there. So I only have 31 HP. Let's see if we could survive another attack. But if we die, that's okay. Okay, they killed us. So what you want to do, it says push button to get up. So I just start pushing the button and you respawn. But you see, you keep your XP. Your HP is reestablished. So you kind of just go through this over and over again. And again, the monotony of that ties into the narrative of this game. This one definitely took me a little time. Once I started leveling up, getting a little stronger, getting a little deeper, fought off one of the dragons, and saw what they were going for, I started liking it a little bit more. Again, this is probably my least favorite of all the games, but I get why it's there. And if you could see, my attack got stronger now that I'm level 2. Won't show you guys too much. And yeah, there's kind of like a deeper force at play here, kind of antagonizing you as that goes. Which was the wrong attack. But yeah, that's that game. So now for you guys that are only interested in seeing the visual component, I'm going to switch the review here. Again, on YouTube, there's a whole bunch of full walkthroughs of each game, so I'd highly suggest you go check those out if you want to see how it plays through the whole thing. And again, the game is very cheap. It was only $10 when I bought it on the Switch eShop. It's also available on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and Steam. So again, get it wherever you want. I'm playing it on Switch and I really enjoyed it. And again, I'll leave this up on there if you guys want to check out any of those games titles right there, the full gameplay, you can do that. So now, for y'all who are interested on my full review portion, I'm going to keep timestamp down below so you guys can skip here. But so I bought this and I basically beat it in 1 or 2 sittings. Again, it took under an hour, but again, I didn't pay like an exorbitant amount money for this, so I wasn't let down in that regard. Again, I'm a big retro game and 80s arcade fan, so this was kind of right up my alley. I heard a lot of people talking about this game. I heard somebody recommended it to me for me to check it out, so I picked it up. Generally, I would say some of the games are kind of hit or miss. I think the team that worked on this game did a great job in doing kind of faithful takes on those old style games. Again, these are 80s arcade games, 90s console games, so depending on how you experience them, it can give you different ideas. A lot of people, when they think of the 80s, again, they go to more the NES style, and they're like, this feels more like 90s style games. Again, these are 80s arcade games. So you can tackle this from two regards. The games themselves, I think, are pretty solid. Mileage may vary depending on what style games that you're personally into. Someone who's really into those dungeon crawling RPGs might really like that last section, or because of the kind of shallow level of the nature of the game included in this, may actually really hate it because they don't feel like there's much there. So I would say each of them are kind of surface level representations of each of those genres. This is actually not really a compilation of 5 arcade games. This is kind of a kid experiencing 5 arcade mini games, if you will. None of them are fully fleshed out. You're not getting, 8, 9 stages per game. You're getting at most 3 to 4, some even shorter than that. The Outrun one, again, is like kind of one continuous level, segmented into 2 parts. So you're not getting a lot in that regard. The story in and of itself is incredibly melodramatic. I didn't really enjoy that much. The story wasn't that compelling. I know they're going for kind of like an 80s coming of age angst story. Didn't resonate too much with me. I don't know if it's going to resonate too much to people who were even there. I definitely saw what they were going for, but the dialogue kind of came off as a little cringy in my regard, or in my opinion. The voice acting wasn't super great. I don't know who the voice acting cast was. The main character kind of gave me the vibe of kind of like the Bart Simpson Naruto, like there was a female voice actor kind of trying to do a teenage boy voice, and it just wasn't really jiving with me. And it was kind of like an internal monologue the entire time that was speaking to the angst of 80s youth and where do you belong and what do you do in the world and what's your place, and parents just don't understand. And again, it's something we've seen before and in my opinion seen done better. But for $10, if you can just kind of skip all that stuff, sadly you can't really skip the cutscenes in between the games, so that kind of sucks in its own regard. But again, maybe that kind of does the developer a disservice because you're skipping the hard work that they put into the writing. I don't think the writing and dialogue is all that great, but generally speaking, I did really enjoy the game. So those are kind of my feelings on it. Again, if you can get it for $9, I can recommend it in that regard. If you like 80s arcade games. If you're not really into that and you're looking for a good narrative experience, or you're looking for fun arcadey style stuff, I don't think there's much for you here. If I had to give it a number score, I'm not a numbered score guy, but if I have to and you guys want a numbered score, I would say maybe 6 out of 10 personally. But till next time, this is a Neo Vintage review and play. Love you guys.